Thanks for joining me, Scott Beck, on Scott on Security. Well, today, at least where I'm located, is Family Day. A day where families get together and sit in the living room and look at their phones. No, I'm just joking. Hopefully that's not the case at all. To my friends in the United States, happy President's Day. I think Family Day sounds a little bit more fun than President's Day. So in Canada, there's been a hot topic around oil pipelines. And I don't want to get into the politics of the situation, but there's been protests and native groups and railways have been shut down and there's been a lot of talk and discussion around that. Well, guess what? A big oil company just got hit with ransomware. Well, it turns out, from what I've read thus far and my understanding of the situation, somebody, the threat actor, sent in phishing email. You guessed it. Somebody ended up clicking on the link. Systems weren't updated. The bad actors were able to then navigate around the IT space of the company and were able to cross over into the operational IT section of the pipelines. Ransomware is occurring. And it's just not good news at all. According to U.S. Homeland Security, they're kind of detailing out what's been happening with this attack and what wasn't in place to prevent something like this from happening. I'll put down a link down below here to lay out a little bit of what is up in case you're interested. But they didn't have some of the basic protections in place. They certainly, well, I don't want to try to guess what they really did or did not have because I'm not there. I can only report on what's being said. And it appears there was an awful lot of common sense, or what I would consider common sense, securities that should have been placed that weren't, that allowed this phishing email using over-the-counter commodity ransomware. And what do I mean by that? I'm talking about someone went on the dark web and was able to buy ransomware as a service. They probably didn't even write the stuff. They just went and picked something up and then sent that out, and somebody fell for it and clicked on it. And now there's a very large company dealing with pipelines that is now dealing with ransomware. Too early to say if this is an attack specifically on that industry or whether this was just bad guys. They cast a net. They throw it out there as far as they can and see who they can reel in with their phishing. It's just convenient, not very convenient to have this occurrence happening with a big oil company. At the same time, there's all these protests that are happening with talks around pipelines in Canada and in the U.S. Been a big, the Keystone Pipeline has been big in the news again with some of the political parties and with the election coming up. So I'm not saying the two of them are combined, just very interesting, shall we say, that this is occurring around the same time. And what can we learn from this? Ransomware isn't going away. You've got to be taking precautions to protect against this stuff. The authorities tell us the bad guys typically are in your network for up to 200 days before they're found, either through a criminal investigation or when they launch a ransomware attack or some other attack. We got to get serious about this stuff. And it's not just happening to these big companies. We hear about it more and more with smaller companies because, let's face it, when they're just casting out the net to get whomever they're going to get, a lot of small businesses are falling for it because a lot of small businesses haven't matured to the point yet of taking cybersecurity seriously, which is why I'm trying to help educate on this. So, be careful out there. You have to be. You got to be training your people on what to be looking for. Do you have some safety training in place? Are you checking it? To say that you had, we had all our staff together and we brought somebody in and they've been trained up. They're good to go. Well, you don't take a bath once and think you're going to stay clean all year, right? No, you don't. And that's the same thing we're finding with cybersecurity. You can bring everybody together. You can bring someone like me in to educate them, which is great. But you start getting 90 days out, people start forgetting about it. You got to keep reminding them. You got to get training in front of them and keep it topical in front of them. When I shared the stage with Kevin Mitnick, Kevin is known as the world's most famous hacker. He was on the FBI's most wanted list during the 90s, was captured, ended up spending a year in solitary confinement. A very interesting story. And the reason they say Kevin's the world's most famous, you may not recognize the name, but there was actually a couple of movies out about him. And you probably went, oh yeah, I do remember about the guy on the most wanted list, that computer guy. Now the thing is, Kevin never stole anything for profit. That was back in the days when it was for bragging rights. He just happened to break into some like really big things like Department of Defense, big telco companies. Anyways, the list goes on. Anyways, the point of the story was when Kevin and I were on stage talking to IT professionals, about 1,500 down in Nashville, Tennessee, he said security training is kind of like going for a flu booster, right? You got to keep inoculating against it. That's what cyber training is about. You're trying to inoculate. And you should be doing some phishing tests to see if your staff fall for it. Because once staff realize they're being tested on it and they get caught, A, it gets a little bit embarrassing if they get caught. And two, it starts to build a culture of security because they go, oh, wait, that email, should I click that link? That looks maybe it's a little bit suspicious. Over time, you're going to build that culture of security. So make sure you're training your people and make sure you're doing some phishing tests to see who is susceptible to falling victim to these kind of things. And not a good time to be in the oil and gas business, apparently, with the protests that are going on and now with the ransomware attacks.